We're talking today with Jack VanHoef of Grand Haven, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, Jack, can you start us off with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
Pardon me?
Where and when were you born?
I was born here in Grand Haven in 1925.
Okay.
That's a hell of a long time ago.
Sure was. All right. What did your family do for a living when you were growing up?
My dad worked as a machinist in a factory, and my mother didn't work.
Okay. Now, did your dad keep his job during the 30s?
Yeah, he was lucky he worked. I think he had 1 week off that I know of.
Mm-hmm. All right. So was your family doing a little bit better than some of the others? Or?
Yeah, he was fortunate. It was a good company, and they kept busy.
Mm-hmm. And what company did he work for?
Color Tool at that time.
All right. Now, so you're now when you were growing up, did you have any jobs or things like that yourself?
Oh, sure.
What kind
As
of?
a kid, you used to caddy. Worked in a tannery place once, mixing dyes.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't much fun. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yeah.
How did you learn about that?
Yeah. How did I hear about that? I think I was listening to a football game on that Sunday, and they interrupted the game. They said that Pearl Harbor had been bombed.
All right.
And I figured, well, I guess my future is here.
Okay. Now, before Pearl Harbor happened, were you paying any attention to the news about the war in Europe?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Of course, that was a big part of the news.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you kept up with that.
Okay. Because some people didn't always, and they were doing other things, but you were paying attention. Did the teachers at school talk about it? Was that talking about it in classes or history class?
A little, yeah, but not a whole heck of a lot.
Okay. And did you know anybody who'd already gone into the service before that, in the Guard?
My older brother was in.
Mm-hmm.
He had been in ROTC years ago, so he went in as a major, and my other brother was, I guess he went in a little bit before I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when did you go in?
In 1943, I think it was, yeah.
Because that was right after you turned 18.
In fact, I wasn't able to go to my graduation. I was down in Detroit getting sworn in.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then once you're in, where did they send you for basic training?
Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it.
All right. Now, at this point, you're in the Army. And do you know what part of the Army you're going to go into?
I was in the Air Force.
Yeah. So, well, the Air Force was still part of the Army.
It was the Army Air Force.
Right. Okay. And so the Biloxi, that was training specifically.
That was an airfield down there.
Right. Okay. So how did they get you down to Biloxi?
On a troop train. It was really box cars with bunks in them, and that's the way it was. A long, hot journey.
Because that was in the summer. I think it's in June when you're actually in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do you remember, was it like 3 days or 4 days or?
I think it was almost 3 days.
Okay.
Because you got sidetracked here and sidetracked there.
All right. And then how would you describe the facilities at Biloxi? What was the base like?
It was hot, and they grazed mosquitoes there. And that basically was just what Mississippi is.
Okay. Now, what did the training consist of?
Mostly just basic training, marching, physical training, and all that sort of thing.
And were you learning anything about
no technical stuff at that time.
All right. And at that point, were you all going in there as enlisted men, or were there people who were trying to be pilots, or?
Well, usually some sergeant had the authority to. He was your little god, and he made sure you knew it too.
Right. Okay, but the men that you were training with, were they just going to be enlisted men in the Air Force?
Well, it depends. From there, you went to another step.
But were there some people who would go on for pilot training, or?
Well, that was the first stage of it.
Okay. All right. And Now, what kind of training did they decide to send you on to get?
Well, then from there we went to, I went to North Carolina State College for about 3 months or 4 months. They called it college training. And from there you went to classification. And in this college training, you took some flight instruction and just about everything.
Okay, so when they send you, so about how long did you spend in Biloxi?
I think about 2 or 3 months.
Okay, all right, and then where in North Carolina did you go?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
So the state university?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, NC State, okay. And then what kind of classes did you get there?
I had math and I can't remember all of them, but
Okay. Now, and when you were at the college, was it still like being in the military?
oh, yeah, strictly military. You had your formations and you marched, and I remember marching some parade down in the Raleigh.
All right. And did you have any free time, or were you always in class and studying?
Yeah, you had some free time, yeah. You go to the PX or Post Exchange, or once in a while you get into town.
Okay.
We had a lot of freedom.
Right.
It kept you pretty busy.
Okay. And so you were there for about 3 months or something like
Yeah.
that? Okay. Now, what was the purpose of sending these Air Force guys to college? Why were they doing that?
I don't know if that was just an interim stage that so they had room in the rest of the further stages or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, I don't really know.
Okay. Well, I know that originally pilots were supposed to be college graduates, and then they kept changing the rules, but they wanted people, especially anyone who might become an officer, to have some college experience. Plus, they didn't have enough
Yeah.
room in the training classes, so some of you had to wait. Okay. So you did this for about 3 months, and then what happened to you after
And you
that?
got sent to classification in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And they classified you where you were going to go.
Okay. And what did they send you to?
Radio school.
Okay. And where was that?
Radio school was in Scottsfield, Illinois.
Okay. And what did that consist of?
A lot of radio, a lot of Morse code. You knew your Morse code. And fixing radios, building radios, all the radio equipment that you're going to have to use. It was kind of interesting. We had free time there. We'd go into St. Louis.
Okay, so Scottsfield, is that East St. Louis, Illinois, is where that is, or somewhere around there?
St. Louis.
Oh, because East St. Louis, Illinois, is right
East
across
St.
the river.
Louis, yeah, that's where we'd go.
Yeah, because there was an Army Air Forces base there. Okay. Now, how easy or hard was it for you to learn the Morse code and that stuff?
It wasn't hard.
Okay.
I mean, you're with it all the time, and day after day.
Were there some guys who just couldn't do it fast enough?
I don't recall any, no.
Okay. All right. And about how long did you spend there?
I think about 3 or 4 months.
So you're getting into 1944 by this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember where you spent Christmas of '43? Was that North Carolina or?
You know, by golly, it couldn't have been that long because first Christmas I remember, geez, somehow or other, the one I remember, it was in Hawaii.
Okay. Well, that might have been '44 because you start flying missions. No, actually, by then you're already no, maybe that was Christmas of '43 because I'm looking at your mission list here. No, that's February. I guess you started at the end of February, so it probably was Christmas of '44 that you're in Hawaii. At least if we do the
Yeah,
math on
I don't
that.
know how the time lapse went in there, but
Okay.
I know from there we were assigned crews after radio school, and we flew together. We were in Arizona. In fact, we were in Yuma, Arizona. Yuma, Arizona at that time was a little town with boardwalks. And After that, we went to San Francisco for our port of embarkation.
About how long do you think you spent in Arizona?
I think, well, we flew practice missions, about 3 months, I gave.
Okay. Yeah.
That sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the training for air crews was really pretty long.
Pardon?
The training for air crews was pretty long. A lot of different
Yeah.
stages and so forth. And now, when you were doing your training, what kind of aircraft were you in?
B-24.
Okay, so they had you in the B-24 to
Yeah.
begin with. Okay. And now you're going to be a radio man on a B-24.
Radio and gunner. Yeah.
Okay, and gunner, and so what was your gun position on the plane?
Well, when we got overseas, I flew the top turret. Normally, the engineer would fly it. But I told him, you be down on the deck, I'll go up there in the turret.
Okay. Why did you go did you want to be in the turret?
Well, if it's anything mechanical happened, he was more apt to, and I wasn't going to be using a radio when you're over the target anyhow.
All right. Now, what do you remember about the guys in your crew?
I remember them all pretty well. Pilot was a tall guy named Lex Harrison from Indiana. He had a little drinking problem. And the co-pilot was from Texas. He was a nice guy. And navigator, I got to be pretty good friends with because we'd have contests about who we could figure out when we were going to get back, what our time would be. And the bombardier, he was from Michigan. I think we got along well. It was a good crew. Compatible.
Yeah. And how many men total?
10.
You're 10. Okay.
There's a picture of them here.
Let's see. We got that.
Not a very big one here. That's the whole crew, and that's the enlisted men.
There we go. All right. Just gonna see. Here we go. Yep. There. Okay. So these are. So this was taken on one of their own camp.
I think it was taken in Hawaii before we.
All right. Now, had you ever flown in an airplane before you joined the Air Force?
No,
Okay. And what was it like the first time you went up?
it was fine. At that time, it was a big deal. I mean, it was a big airplane. Now it's nothing.
Right. Okay. Now, as you're going through all of these different phases of training, were you following what was happening in the war and
Oh, yeah,
where the
yeah.
battles were and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, you kept track of what was going on. Of course, I had two brothers in it, so I wanted to know what they were doing.
Right. Okay. And as you're going through the training, were you thinking about where you were going to be assigned? Did you think you were going to go to Europe?
Well, I knew we were going to the Pacific. 'Cause
Okay.
we were in California, we were going to leave from there.
Okay. But before that, like when you were in Arizona or Illinois?
Well, you just went where they told you.
Right. Okay. So you go through a lot of different stages of training. Now, before you went overseas, did you get to go home on leave?
No,
Okay. So just staying straight with the Army
Yeah.
the whole time. Okay. And by Christmas of '44, you've made it as far as Hawaii. Now, was that just a stopover, or did you train there for a while?
it was just a stopover. It was a good deal. We had to get flying time in, so we took off from Oahu and flew over to the island of Hawaii, which was nothing at that time. It was just a little jungle town.
Yeah. Okay, so you got to do that, but you go over in your plane.
Yeah,
Okay.
we landed and got out, walked around, and got back just so we get our flying pay.
Okay. And then from there, where did you go next?
Then we flew overseas.
Okay.
I think our first stop was Johnson Island, and then I'm not sure, I think it might have been Guam. And then we ended up in Nadsab, New Guinea. That was interesting.
All right. I think it's
The
NASDAQ, yeah.
natives came out and tried to bargain with you on things and stuff. Pack of cigarettes, you could get anything.
All right. Now, what was going on there at that time? What unit did you join, and what were they doing?
That's when we were assigned to 5th Air Force and 90th Bomb Group,
And then which squadron?
yeah, and the 400th Bomb. Well, after you got to the bomb group, then it was just a matter of what squadron you're going to be in.
Right. Okay. Now, did you keep the plane that you flew over, or did they assign you a different plane?
You don't have a regular plane. You have the planes that are there, you take one that's ready and you go. But the one we flew was the one they had wanted to come over, so they were going to use that plane.
Okay. But on each mission, you might be in a different aircraft?
Pardon?
But with each mission, you might have a different aircraft
Oh,
to fly?
yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't like there was one plane that
No,
was your
not
plane?
your plane. and-
Yeah. Okay. Now, was there just the one squadron based there, or was the whole bomb group
no,
there?
there was a 5th Air Force was there, the 13th Air Force was there.
Okay. And so,
We were known as the Jolly Rogers because we had skull and crossbones painted on the tail.
okay. And then you're in this place in New Guinea. Is there, what was the base like? Was it just tents or?
Yeah, it was strictly tents and kind of in a coconut grove. It was kind of not a bad place.
Okay. Did you have problems with mosquitoes or
Oh,
bugs
you
or
always had
snakes?
mosquito netting.
And did you take medicine to prevent malaria?
Took Atabrine.
Okay. And
Turned yellow.
were there guys who didn't want to take it, or?
Well, if they didn't want to take it, you took a chance to take it and get malaria.
Right.
So
Okay, so you took yours.
we took it.
Okay. And then how long after you got there was it before you started to fly missions, do you think?
Well, right after we got into our squadron, I think we're there for about 5 or 6 or 10 days and flew our first mission.
Okay. And do you remember the first mission?
I think it was over what was called then Formosa. And I remember we left very early in the morning, and it was altogether about a 10-hour flight, over and back, a 10-hour mission.
Okay. And do you know what kind of target you had there, or that wasn't your problem?
That wasn't my problem.
Okay. When you got there, was there any opposition? Was there any aircraft
Oh, there's
fighting?
always flak. The little black puffs that don't look like they're much, but they poke a few holes in the plane every once in a while. It was kind of a joke because we'd get there about the same time, and we figured that all the gunners down there were sleeping. And said, "Oh, it's about time we get up. Here they come."
All right. Now, did they have much success? Did planes in your squadron get hit or shot down?
Yeah, you got hit. I don't remember seeing any of them knocked down. They weren't that good.
Okay. And how high up would you be when you were
Well,
bombing?
We usually bombed at about 10,000 feet.
Okay.
We used to kid about that because we had the same altitude. They could set their guns.
Yeah. But I guess until they start hitting you,
Yeah.
yeah, you can keep doing it. Okay. Now, did the Japanese have any aircraft in the area or just flak?
At that time, we had escort of P-51s. They were pretty long range. And so we didn't have much fighter problems.
Okay. And now, over the course of your time there, you flew, looks like on the rosters are like 28 missions. So kind of from February of 45 and kind of got down to the end of the war. What different places did you fly to?
Well, we bombed, in China, we bombed Kowloon Harbor, part of one of their dry dock areas. And it's called Kowloon.
Yeah.
I think it's right outside of Singapore. In fact, you can see Singapore.
Well, Kowloon is by Hong Kong.
Maybe it's Hong Kong. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. Hey, that's what historians are for. Okay. Yeah. So you're going there. But that's right there by the Chinese mainland there, as well as in Formosa. And where else did you go?
Well, we covered an invasion one time, dropping at pretty low level, dropping bombs all along a beach for an invasion, soften it up. we bombed in Borneo some oil fields. That was when I was sweating out, because if you got knocked down in Borneo, you had a problem.
Okay.
Nothing but jungle.
Well, there's some headhunters.
And a good share of our missions were on Formosa.
Okay. And did you also fly to the Philippines, or did you?
We flew out of the Philippines.
Okay. So how long did you stay in New Guinea, do you think?
Oh, we didn't stay there long.
Okay.
That was just kind of a stopover.
All right. So, but then you went up to the Philippines.
And then we went up to the Philippines.
And then where in the Philippines were you based?
We were based on the island of Mindoro.
Okay. Did you attack targets in the Philippines as well?
Pardon me?
Did you attack targets in the Philippines?
Yeah, we bombed an invasion of Mindanao,
Okay.
which was one of the other islands.
Right. Because that was 45 when we landed
Yeah.
there. So yeah. All right. Now, over the course of flying these missions, did you ever encounter any Japanese aircraft?
Yeah, you see them off on a distance, but they didn't come in too close.
Okay, so your escorts took
Yeah.
care of that. All right. And did you have any indication on any of these missions how effective you were? I mean, did you ever get reports or see
I
things?
used to have pictures of of our bombing runs and stuff. And I can remember one time a bomb hit. I was watching it go down, hit in the middle of a swimming pool in Formosa. And it varied. I mean, sometimes you'd carry 2,000-pound bombs. Sometimes you'd carry 100-pounders or cluster bombs. And
Okay. Now, over the course of these different missions, did you have any that were particularly dangerous or particularly scary?
well, two most hazardous things that happened in my situation. We cracked up on takeoff on one mission. We lost power and we kept going over the end and sheared a wing off, and it was kind of hairy because most of the time you blew up when you did that. But we survived that one.
Okay,
And we came to a stop on the dirt at the end of the runway. I can remember climbing up out of the top hatch and jumping about 12 feet, landing in a pile of dirt, running like a son of a gun.
Because you had your fuel tanks were full and you had the full bomb load.
Fuel tanks, and then this was an extra long mission, so they had more gas in the bomb bay.
So if you'd gone a little farther and a little higher and hit, you might have been.
Well, yeah,
in
hard
trouble.
telling, but just survived.
Okay. Now, did anybody get hurt in that?
Yeah, one of the guys dropped out of the plane. He said, "I'm not going to go with this," and he went out the bottom hatch in the back, and the plane went down and broke a couple of ribs on him. But that was the only casualty.
Okay.
But the other situation was we landed in Luzon. We had some engine problems, so rather than going to Mindoro, we landed there overnight. And I got up the next morning, I was walking to the mess hall, and it looked like it was going to rain. And I'm walking across a big open field. And all of a sudden, a streak of lightning came down and hit from here to that chair for me. I walked over there afterwards and looked, and there was a hole about that big around.
Wow.
And it was smoking. I thought, I guess the Lord didn't want me. That was about as close as I came to anything.
Okay. So at this stage of the war, the Japanese weren't really causing a lot of trouble.
They were on the starting to peter out.
Okay. Now, when you're based in the Philippines, did you see much of the Filipino population? Did they work on the base, or were they
No,
around?
they didn't. They were around, yeah. They'd come around trying to sell stuff, but for the most part, no.
Okay, so you didn't have very much.
Well, we went when we stopped on the way back in that lightning thing. We were in Luzon, and we went and lived it up a little bit in a town there. Drank some of their sake.
All right. So what did you do when you weren't flying? I mean, how did you spend your downtime?
Well, borrowed some guns from the officers went duck hunting. That was kind of interesting because after I went, they told me about all the stuff that's in those marshes. I thought, what the Samuel am I doing in there?
So what was in the marshes?
Oh, there's boas and cobras and anything else you wanted. But, well, we went swimming and messed around.
Okay. Could you listen to the radio? Was there anything to listen to? Or?
No, we didn't have a radio.
Okay, no radios. Did you get, how much contact did you have with home? Did you get letters?
Just mail.
Okay.
Strictly mail.
And how regular was the mail service?
Pretty regular.
Okay.
I got some Christmas gifts about in February or March.
And would you get news from home or newspapers or
Oh
things
yeah,
like that?
you knew what was going on. You always had the Stars and Stripes newspaper.
Okay. Now, as you kind of get into the summer of '45 and Germany has surrendered, did you figure that sooner or later you were going to be supporting the invasion of Japan? Were you thinking
We
about...
moved up then. We moved from the Philippines up to a little island called Shima.
Okay.
And that's the island where Ernie Pyle, who was killed on.
Right, that's a little island right next to Okinawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so do you remember about when you got there? July maybe, or...
But just before the end of the war.
Okay, yeah, so probably around
In
then.
fact, the peace was declared when we were on there.
Mm-hmm.
And there really weren't any barracks there, so we pitched it to kind of make a tent up on the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel came around to see if we were all right. Yeah, we're okay.
Oh, so your crew just went off by themselves, or?
Yeah, you had to be available.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when you were on the ground, did the officers sort of hang out with the enlisted men?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's no big line of authority there.
Okay.
In fact, I can remember one, well, it was in Hawaii, the bombardier said, let's box. So I said, okay. So I had dislocated his thumb when he tried to hit me, so that was fun. We did a lot of things.
Did they have, were there people that would they play sports or whatever on the base, or I mean, you mentioned boxing? Did they play baseball or anything else like that?
Yeah,
or?
someplace we had a ball diamond and we played some baseball. I don't remember where it was though.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been overseas because we hit the ball on the airplane dump and we couldn't find it.
All right. And then, did you hear about the atomic bomb before the end of the war or afterward, or?
Did we what?
Well, when they dropped the atomic bomb in August, right before the end of the war, did you hear news about that before the Japanese surrendered, or did you learn about all that later?
Oh, we heard about it then when they
Okay.
did it.
All right. And did you understand what that meant? Did you think that?
Not the real significance of it, no. Not the total destruction that it did. But we were all in favor of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then shortly after that, the Japanese do surrender. Okay. Now,
In fact, they had the peace envoy was right near our Yuma.
mm-hmm. I mean the Japanese peace envoy. So he came down to Okinawa to meet with the Americans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then once the surrender is announced, then what happens to you?
And we just stuck around and messed around. Went fishing by throwing grenades out into the ocean and see them. We found things to do.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of caves around here in Ayashima, all in the coral. So we went poking around in some of those. A few dead Japanese in some of them.
Were you worried about maybe finding booby traps or some live Japanese or anything
Didn't
like
even
that?
think about that.
Okay. All right. And how long was it, do you think, before they actually let you go home?
I think we stayed there maybe a month or so, and finally they got a plane for us, and we flew home.
Okay.
We flew our own plane, just flew a plane home.
Right. Okay, so you didn't do anything, you didn't do any flying to other islands or go up to Japan
No,
or anything else
no.
like that? You were just sitting around waiting for somebody
No,
to send you
I
home?
was happy just to sit there and know that you were going home sooner or later.
All right. Now, you think back about the time that you spent overseas. Is there anything in particular that kind of stands out in your memory that you haven't brought in yet into the story?
No, not really. We got discharged from Bear Field in Indiana, and I think got a train ride to Grand Rapids. And for Grand Rapids, I think I hired a cab to get me home.
Mm-hmm.
And that was late at night.
All right. And then once you got back home, what did you wind up doing?
We just kind of relaxed. I was sorry I missed deer season.
Okay. And then after that, did you go to school or get a job, or what did
Then
you
I
do?
went to school after that,
Okay.
down at Western.
Okay, so Western Michigan. All right. And what did you study there?
Nothing. I just had a general course.
Okay.
I only stayed there about 2.5 years, then I left.
Okay. And what did you do after that?
Well, then I don't know if you're familiar with Schuler hotels. Well, I tended bar for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and that was kind of fun. My buddy and I both tended bar, and it gave us a lot of time to hunt and fish. And we were drawing our 52.20 at $20 a week for 52 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And just messed around, and when I finally decided going to school, and we did that.
Okay. And then what kind of career did you wind up in?
Pardon me?
What kind of career did you wind up having?
I got to work in one of the local factories in time study and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So I took courses and ended up as an industrial engineer.
All right. Okay, and that basically then was your main
Yeah, then
career?
I joined a friend of mine who owned a little factory, made water meters, and he wanted me to come work for him, and I said, okay. So then I ended up kind of as plant manager of this. And I retired from that.
Okay. Now, when you look back at the time that you spent in the service, what do you think you took out of that, or what did you learn from that?
I don't know, I guess, there was no great philosophy to it or anything like that. You were just glad you made it through, and you're glad all your brothers made it through, and
Mm-hmm.
there were a few guys that didn't, and it was a great experience. I saw things I would never have seen. I mean, I saw parts of the country that some were beautiful, some were pretty miserable. So it was all in all, and you made it. It was a great experience.
All right. Okay. Well, it's a story that complements a lot that we have and shows some sides of the war people might not expect to see. So I'd like to just thank you for taking the time to tell a story today.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.